In a previous video, we talked about lycanthropy and how to become a werewolf in your D&D campaign. But today's not about werewolves. This video is from my fellow Team Edward supporters. That's right. This video is about vampires and how to become one in your D&D campaign. So the monster manual says that to become a vampire, you must have your HP completely depleted to 0 by the bite of a vampire as the final strike. And then if you are buried, the next morning when you wake up, you will be a vampire spawn. That's why you always read the terms and conditions when dealing with the undead. To keep it brief, a vampire spawn is essentially just a puppet to the vampire that turned you into one. And they're not nearly as cool, but they do get regeneration, a few of the stat buffs, and then bite and multi-attack. And when you're a vampire spawn, you are under complete total control of the vampire who made you into a vampire spawn. And the only way to become a vampire on your own is to get a bit of blood from a vampire, which doesn't happen because they're not generous. Or you have to kill the vampire, or someone has to kill the vampire that turned you into it, and then you, along with all the other vampire spawn, will get free will. So now that you're an actual vampire, there's a lot of changes that come with it. It's like puberty all over again. The first is your alignment will become lawful evil, and then your strength, con, and dex stat all become 18 if they aren't already. On top of that, you use your strength to attack, and your save DC for your charm is 8, plus your proficiency bonus, plus your charisma. So good luck getting out of that one. You get all the vampire's resistances, which includes bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing from non-magical weapons, along with necrotic damage. You get 120 feet of dark vision, a passive perception of 18, and all their traits and abilities, which include Shape Changer, legendary resistance 3 times a day, Misty Escape, regeneration, spider climb, multi-attack, unarmed strike, bite, charm, and shield in the night 1 time a day. But now it's time for the weaknesses. Forbiddance makes it so you can't enter someone's residence without an invitation from one of the occupants. Sucks you can't wedding crash. Harmed by running water makes it so a vampire takes 20 acidic damage if they end their turn in running water. Which is weird, but when you think of it, holy water also does that, and I think running water is more clean, and that's why it hurts them. Or they could just not like water. Sunlight hypersensitivity makes it so you take 20 radiant damage if you start your turn in the sun, and you roll disadvantage for ability and attack rolls. The last weakness is stake to the heart. If a vampire is incapacitated and you put a stake through its chest, it becomes paralyzed and they cannot move until the stake is removed. There's obviously a lot more pros than cons when it comes to being a vampire, but these are things you should look out for if you're either fighting one or if you're trying to become one. The few final things that come with being a vampire is the housing situation. You need a place to rest, which needs to be your coffin or just some dirt from where you were buried. And doing this makes your vampire lair have some freaky occurrences around your neighborhood. Some of these changes are there's a sizable increase of wolves, bats, and rats in the area. And then within 500 feet, all plants become coiled and thorny and they're all withered. Also, in this 500 feet, shadows become bigger and gaunt like they're getting you. And there's a fog around your lair that looks like it's serpents coming to get you, or sometimes they resemble claws of a beast. These are such little features, but I think they add so much ambiance to your lair, and it's really good for world building. If the vampire dies, these effects last for 2d6 days after their death. So as you can tell, there are a lot of changes that come with becoming a vampire in D&D, which is super cool. I like that D&D gives you this option, but it can be super overwhelming if you do it exactly how they do, which you don't need to. Dealing with the whole alignment change can be a lot, or having to be a vampire spawn first can suck. Plus, vampires have a CR rating of 13. If you have a lower level party, this will ruin it. And keeping track of all those rules is hard enough, but keeping track of vampire rules along with your character, it's too much. So because of that, I have 3 unofficial ways to become a vampire in your D&D campaign. The first thing I'd recommend is just tweaking what D&D already gave you. They give you a really good foundation to start off on, and you could just take away things that you find unfit for your character. And there's so much media about vampires, so you could really make it your vampire, and it'd make it resemble Nosferatu, Dracula, or Marceline if that's the approach you're going for. I'd also recommend lowering it down and taking away some of the abilities and giving it to your player once they reach that level so they don't have everything at once and they're too OP, and it also makes it so they're not the best person in your party and all the other people feel lackluster in comparison. The second thing I'd recommend is just homebrew your own vampire. And if that's too much work, people have already done it for you. There's so many things online. I'd say start with the DM's Guild online or start on Reddit. That's a good foundation. Don't be afraid to change their homebrew so it fits your campaign better. My third and final option is to play a dampire. That's right, a dampire, not a vampire. They're basically just half vampires, that's another name for them, and they hold some of the traits and abilities, but they haven't fully become a vampire yet. For a dampire, you get to increase one ability score by 2 and another one by 1, or you can get 3 different abilities and increase them all by 1. You get 60 feet of dark vision if you don't already have it, and you don't need to breathe. You also get spider climb, which is kind of cool, and it equals your speed. And then once you get to level 3, you can do it with no hands. You could just walk around on the walls. And the last ability you get, which is pretty cool, is their vampiric bite. It's not the same as a vampire's though. You get to roll a 1d4, and if you're below 50 HP, you get to do it with advantage. And with that d4, you attack, and then you could either choose to gain that 1d4 in health, or you could add that as like a bonus thing to your next roll, whether it's an attack or a skill check, which is awesome. It's not the best damage, but the feature is nice to have if you do need a little bit of HP or your rolls have been terrible. For becoming a vampire officially, there's really only one way, but for vampires, that's kind of the beauty of it. You can become a vampire however you want. Some of them are you had a vampire in the past in your family and now you have it, or you made a deal with someone, or you survived a vampire attack but it changed you forever. As you can tell, there are a lot of ways to become a vampire, and the more fun part is how you became that vampire. It could be something that happens mid campaign as a plot point for your character, or it could be a backstory thing and you've been a vampire for thousands of years. This is your story, so get creative with it and pick whichever of the 4 fits you best. The final thing that I have to note is for all of the different ways you become a vampire or vampire, there's only one way to cure it, and that's with the wish spell. So unless you have a genie in your back pocket, you better really make sure you want to become a vampire because you're stuck with it. So no more tanning because you can't. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this helps so you can lurk in the shadows better with your next campaign. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe, and share. Peace out and happy rolling, guys and girls and everyone. All these cool effects last for 2 C6. 2d6.